Could it be that Ferumbras even has a link with the basilisk? Perhaps not directly, but it is possible that they are part of the same consequence. Today we will see part of the secrets of Ferumbras and unpublished data from the basilisk, which relate these two great stories and perhaps some way to solve a long-forgotten quest. We must first start from the basics, a summary of the history of Ferumbras. For this, we must go back to times before his birth, the war in Plains of Havoc. It all begins when an order of knights called Nightmare Knights arrive in dangerous lands called Plains of Havoc. The Nightmare Knights were an order composed of mystical men, who learned the secrets of the dream walking, taught by their friends and teachers the elves. These elves were not ordinary elves, rather they were elves of a caste called Teshiel. Elves are divided into several castes and each one of them has its own abilities and characteristics. What makes the Teshiel elves important and particular is their gift of inhabiting the dimension of dreams, which was a gift from the gods for their race, so that they could face and protect themselves from a dark age in Tibia called Corpse War. The Nightmare Knights practiced their dream-walking skills in Plains of Havoc, a place you surely have already visited in their abandoned fortresses known as the Dream Challenge Quest. Driven by greed and an ambition to learn dark secrets, some druids were corrupted and began to practice the art of necromancy. Today we know these creatures as necromancers, who founded a cult called Brotherhood of Bones. Due to their ambition for power and knowledge, they decided to infiltrate the Nightmare Knight Order in order to learn the secret of dream walking. The most powerful member of the necromancer who managed to infiltrate this order was known as Foulness, who would later reveal himself by his real name, Goshnar. When the necromancers arrived in the Plains of Havoc to declare war on their enemies the Nightmare Knights, Goshnar revealed himself, joining the Order of Necromancers. The important thing here is to know that Goshnar was not simply a powerful druid and the necromancer king, but rather that he is a direct descendant of the pharaohs of Ankreman and in his veins runs elven blood, which explains the great power of Goshnar. Since the ancient elves were extremely powerful creatures and at some point they mixed with humans, giving rise to the pharaohs of Ankreman and therefore, granting great powers to their descendants, which in this case, Goshnar also possesses. Goshnar ended up being killed in the Battle of Plains of Havoc. You can even find his grave at the entrance to Pits of Inferno. After the end of the war, a powerful girl was identified as Femubas, who was recognized as the daughter of Goshnar himself. She escaped to Karlin, where at that time she was already pregnant with her future child who would become known as Ferumbras. But before going into more detail, returning to the Nightmare Knights, as I mentioned earlier, not only necromancers infiltrated, but also some dwarfs. They also learned the secrets of dream walking, which led them to ambition and the seduction of evil, where they began to work for the malevolent god named Zathrath and their betrayal of their creators, the gods of good. In this part of the story, a before and after begins. It is here that many of the mysteries we know come to life. The base of operation where said creatures operated was in Ankreman, specifically in Serpentine Tower. From this place, multiple experiments were made that lead to the great mysteries of Tibia. First, we must understand which creatures specifically worked in this mysterious place and why. Some of these creatures were the dwarfs, who were seduced by the forbidden knowledge. Necromancers and warlocks also worked among them, and all contributed their knowledge and abilities to Zathrath's plans, which consisted, as Genesis describes, in the obsession with undeath and the summoning of demons. It is for this reason that the city of Ankreman is recognized as the city of undeath mainly, in addition to finding documents that speak of the invocation of demons. But this is only the beginning. The consequences that this fact entails will be explained below. Among the documents that we find in this tower, we find one in particular in a visibly important place, the research paper, Divination Spell. This research paper consists of the success that scientists had in this place regarding the divination spell to specify the gender of an unborn child. Furthermore, this discovery gives them the ability to detect hostile presences in an area of effect of the spell. At first glance, this document may not make sense to you at all, but that's the catch. The document is meaningless if we don't know where such information comes from. In order to understand this document, we must go to another library. As we go through the bookshelves of Khazad-dûm, we will find a curious book, which consists of the reports that some dwarfs managed to reveal about their enemies, the elves. As the book describes, the dwarfs managed to reveal the secrets of the dream magic belonging to the Teshiel elves, in which they discovered that this ability serves to specify the gender of an unborn child. They also discovered that these abilities influence an area of effect which gives it the opportunity to appear somewhere out of nowhere, but that the second earthen chamber is working on a counterspell for that. Does it make sense to you now? If you still can't find the similarities, I'll explain them below. The research paper, Divination Spell, says that they successfully carried out the ability to specify the gender of an unborn child. As for the Dwarven report, it says that they revealed the secrets of elves that can specify the gender of an unborn child. On the other hand, the research paper says that this ability will help them detect the presence of unwanted creatures in an area of effect of the spell. While the book The Khazad-dûm says that the second earthen chamber is working on a counterspell that reveals unwanted creatures in a specific area. In short, the dwarfs learned the art of dream walking and used it to their advantage. Now we must remember what I said at the beginning of the video about the dwarfs who joined the Order of the Nightmare Knights. Then, their purpose of joining the order was to learn the secrets to use them for Zathratha's plans. But does this imply something else? Of course. Perhaps now we should ask ourselves where this spell was used, or rather, in who this spell was used for. Do you remember the story of Farumbra's mother? Well, her husband at the time, Hugo, was transformed into the well-known Demon Bunny, which we can find in the Dream Challenge quest. Hugo was transformed into a rabbit in a failed ritual, performed in the current Lubos house. This information can be obtained by doing the Paradox Tower. This place used to be a stable, therefore, in the middle of the ritual, a rabbit crossed the path, transformed Hugo into a Demon Bunny. But that's not relevant at all. Let us remember that the necromancers were also infiltrated in the Order of the Nightmare Knights, and in Dream Challenge quest, we can find a book written by them, which says that they were practicing polymorphy through spells. In those spell tests they managed to transform into creatures, such as rats or worms. When they managed to transform into creatures, these necromancers transformed into creatures attacked Ty's castle. While it's unknown what happened next, this book makes many things clear. With the abilities they learned from the elves, these necromancers also managed to carry out these spells that involve polymorphism, whose ability is also typical of Teshiel elves, as described in a book that reveals the characteristic of these elves, saying that they can choose any appearance as they wish. But back to the research paper, Divination Spell, on whom was the spell used? We have something clear about this issue. The ritual that Farumbra's parents carried out involved creating an extremely powerful creature. But let's remember that the research paper talks about an unborn child, and we well know that Yenny the Gentle was pregnant. In conclusion, said spell was used to create the mighty Farumbra's. Farumbra's was a creature thought to be a weapon of destruction, which due to his ancestors and the elven blood that runs through his veins, became what he is today, the most powerful magician in Tydea. Perhaps now it makes sense why we found a Carrot of Doom between one of the objects in the Serpentine Tower. However, this is half the story, but I leave you now thinking about some topics for the next video. What other ordinary creatures do we know? What other creatures could have suffered polymorphism? Remember that the transformed necromancers attacked Ty's castle. Are there any suspicious pet in the Thyan castle? What about the basilisk? This and more, we will see in the next chapter.